Hello and welcome to the Juggling podcast, Patreon exclusive number, I think episode 18.
Wow, 18 already.
Yeah, already up to 18. It's April 2020. I think that's how we say it these days.
Yes.
Joining me is Juliane. I'm Luke. Say hi.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Patreon supporters. Hello, anybody who's listening to this who isn't a Patreon supporter. Maybe I'll put this one out in other places, maybe on YouTube in the future. Although this one's a bit more timely because we're actually talking about, this episode, we're talking about what's happening now. So
right now in our lives.
Yeah, and I often want these, well, mostly I want these podcasts, any podcast that I do, I don't mind if it's like some of the stuff that we're talking about is like timely and about what's happening in the real world. But I always want there to be a timeless quality to anything that I do.
So people can listen to this topic at any point in 10 years.
In 10 years' time.
I don't know.
But here's the thing. Everybody who I now see putting out stuff on YouTube and podcasts, well, podcast is a bit more obvious because generally the podcasts that you listen to are recorded like today or yesterday or recently. Maybe a few days ago, it's spent a few days to edit the podcast together and then you're listening to the podcast. This will be out this evening or tomorrow morning or whatever.
Yeah.
But with YouTube videos, lots of people film lots of footage and then they're editing it together and putting it out.
Yeah.
And weirdly, everybody is saying, oh, this footage is from 2 months ago. This footage is from January.
If you see people gathering, this is us not now, but...
Yeah, this is from before. This is from the before times. This is from, all this other kind of stuff. And in some ways I appreciate that because it makes me feel good. It's sort of like, all those people hanging out together and doing this thing. This is from the before times, so I don't need to worry about it and I don't need to...
But they act responsibly.
But also I'm really annoyed that every single video from this 2 month span or this 1 month span up until now, I don't know what's going to happen in the future. Maybe it's just going to be normal that we're like, oh yeah, if you see videos with lots of people gathering around and doing something together, you're just going to assume that it's from the before times.
Yeah, for quite some time, I'm guessing.
But it really annoys me that everyone's videos that I'm seeing now on YouTube's have just got, this is from before, and they're all like, oh, stay safe and welcome and all, all the messages that you're getting from coronavirus. But this episode, unlike the other juggling podcast, this is going to be much more about now and about what's happening now.
Being in the situation
that we're in.
In
our coronavirus...
Finding the way.
And a coronavirus social distancing, quarantine, kind of self-quarantining kind of time.
Yes.
And so let's just say, what happened to get into this? February, we moved into a new apartment.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, this is great. Moved into a new apartment.
Got an office, a studio.
Yes, well, I'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I was like, oh, this is good. Beforehand living in Berlin for juggling training. I mentioned it in the previous podcast that we moved into that apartment and I was like, I'm going to train at the catacomb, and then the catacomb burnt down 2 months later.
Yes.
And now we moved into this apartment. I was like, now the catapult, not the catacomb, but the catapult training space in Berlin.
Yeah, it's close, not really closer, but more
easy to get to.
Easy to get to.
There in 30 minutes or whatever like that. So I can get there and I can become a member. So I signed up for a membership for a month. Yeah, and I was like, oh, this is great. And if this works out, I'm going to get a 6-month membership or a year membership or whatever. And it's literally exactly the same situation that I was in when moving to the previous apartment 4 years ago.
True.
It was almost exactly 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And then the catacomb, and I'd trained there for a month and a half, and then the catacomb burnt down. And here
that all happened in March, and this time it all happened in
it's a month.
2016 it was all in April, and this time it's all happening in March.
So I started training there, and I didn't train there for a full month. It was about 2 weeks, and then I got an emergency gig, and I left off and went down to Australia.
Yes.
And then literally by the time I get back from Australia and New Zealand, actually, everything's here. And now I'm once again in a place where I'm like, yes, and I was expecting that my new training space, and I was going to, find a rhythm and start training and go to a new training place. Whereas now it hasn't worked out.
No.
In a way, the best time to be in social distancing, self-quarantine, not going out of the house would have been in our Mehringdamm apartment where we had a huge juggling studio.
Yeah.
which we talked about in two episodes ago. If you're a Patreon member, go back and listen to that. I think it was only 2 or 3 episodes ago where it was about the dream juggling space.
Yes.
And having a dream juggling space would be fantastic in this amount of space. And I'm really jealous of these jugglers that I see who have these home training spaces.
Yeah.
And I've seen on Instagram, I think Julius has got some double height balcony, in front of a balcony
in Austria somewhere.
Yeah, I think it's his girlfriend or whatever.
Yeah.
And then there's people like Zach McAllister, who I'm seeing, he's doing shows because he's got this training space at home. And other people who are just in places with the good weather and they've got a nice garden. And that would be really good. Our garden here, not even as suitable for juggling in as our previous garden. Because in our previous apartment, we had a terrace, which was fine. And then we had a garden area of our own, and then we had this big shared garden, and there was this pathway, and so not great for professional juggling training, but pretty good for going outside and juggling. I would just go out there and do some club juggling for an hour or so like that. Yeah. But not really possible for a full training session where I'm juggling through juggling routines or whatever. But yeah, it's super weird to come now to a new apartment and not have that, After moving here, but that's so weird. So you tell people what it was like to move into a new apartment, a new home, and start because I want this is about juggling, but also generally about what we're up to these days.
Yes. So what basically happened is we moved in here after all the stressful, hey, we're going to buy a house, an apartment, super spontaneously, whatever. And
it wasn't that spontaneous, but it was the opportunity came up.
The opportunity came up.
Yeah.
This is a beautiful place. We just secured it and we moved in here in the beginning of February.
Yeah.
And then 2 days before we moved, I had a stupid accident and dropped the washing machine on my toe. So then the doctor...
I forgot about that.
Yes. The doctor then that I went to here, he said, I just you look a bit stressed out and exhausted. You get 2 weeks off work.
Yeah.
So that was the first thing. So I stayed at home for 2 weeks.
And that was the 2 weeks where I was building everything up, putting together furniture.
You were emptying the boxes and all this kind of stuff. And then, so I was at home for 2 weeks. And then in the third week, I got a note by a hospital that I can do diagnostics there about some weird stuff.
Yeah.
So then I spent a week in hospital.
Yeah.
And then I came back. And then I went to work from our new home. I went to work.
You commuted into Berlin.
I commuted into Berlin. I think in total maybe 4 times.
Yeah.
And then it started to become apparent that there's something going on.
Yeah.
And because I consider myself a part of the risk group. So
You'd just been in and out of hospital for a week.
I've been in and out of hospital. So I said, look, people, in February, I got granted 1 day of home office.
Yeah.
So
per week, that was the idea.
Per week, that would be a normal working schedule. I go into work for 3 days and work from home one day.
Yeah.
So I had all the necessary things to access work from home. And so I said, look, I am not going on a 1.5 hour commute in public transport just to go to work.
Yeah.
Considering what happened everywhere else.
Yeah.
Everything was already bad in Italy. And,
Spain was already going down. Yeah.
So I said, look, I'm just going to do home office.
Yeah.
So I started, I think, a week before everybody else in the office.
Before it all closed down.
Before everything closed down.
Yeah.
So I basically have been home, apart from a few days where I commuted, which I don't even really count.
Yeah, so it was so weird that we moved out slightly outside of Berlin to a place in the forest.
Yeah.
And it's been so weird because we were like, yay, setting up a new life, and we're gonna like explore the area and meet new people and do all the kind of stuff that we want to do here.
Yes.
Even though we know this area because your parents live just a few streets away.
Yeah.
It was such a weird way of setting up that we're like, yay, start a new life. We've moved to the suburbs. Well, not the suburbs, but like a small town outside of Berlin.
And to be honest, it is fantastic to be stuck in this apartment now.
Yeah, in the forest.
We are living amongst trees. It looks like the jungle out there currently. It's so green and so it's great. I love it.
Yeah.
But yes, it has been an absolute shift in our life.
Yeah.
the coinciding
moving house and immediately starting
and staying at home and being immediately at home.
Yeah, and it was weird because in that time that you just did a little bit of commuting, like the week after you came out of hospital, I went to Australia, and then I went onto a cruise ship, and then I was traveling to another cruise ship, and literally on the flight over, I was told you're not going to work on the next cruise ship.
Yeah.
You have to have a 2-week gap between leaving a ship and joining another ship.
Yeah.
And then I had another contract after that 2 weeks, which I could have joined. And so I made the decision to stay down in New Zealand to join the next contract. But within that 2 weeks, it seems so crazy now that like at the start of that 2 weeks, they're like, oh, we're trying to put in place some policies where people don't go between cruise ships. And within like a week, it was like all cruises are cancelled,
everything.
like that kind of stuff. Now, thankfully, I still got paid for those 2 cancelled gigs that I didn't go to.
Yeah.
But it means that this year I've done 2 cruise contracts? One is it, or 1 or 2 or something like that? I think that's it.
2.
Yeah, two cruise contracts.
It's crazy.
Yeah, so it's one of those weird things that and now as I was down, I remember sending some messages to people online or posting on the forum or something saying, this next cruise is being cancelled, but I've got now 2 weeks in New Zealand or 10 days in New Zealand. I'm going to take full advantage of this, this time in New Zealand. I'm going to meet jugglers, and I did meet some jugglers.
Yeah.
But literally within that 2 weeks, I think I said I'm going to do this before the complete destruction of my chosen career or something like that. And literally within 4 days, I was like, oh, that's it. That's it. I was working for Princess Cruises, and Princess Cruises, there was this press release saying, oh yeah, no more cruises, no one's joining cruise ships. We're going to get this kind of thing.
Yeah. And so it was 60 days, and now it's 100 days.
Yeah, but I'm saying it was at that time. It was this 1 week period of when I was there when they're like, maybe you're not going to join the next cruise ship to you don't have a job anymore working on cruise ships. Yeah. And that's such a crazy thing, that transition from, I remember when I was over there and I was like, oh, I'm going to be in New Zealand at the time when the Australian Formula One, the Grand Prix is going to be on.
Right.
So normally I'd get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to watch the Australian Grand Prix. It's the first race of the season, like that.
The right time zone now.
Yeah, I was at more of a correct time zone because I was going to be in Wellington in New Zealand on that Sunday when that race would be. And so I got there, I was still in Australia on the Friday, and everything's like, oh yeah, whatever, first practice. And then it was literally within 2 days, they're like, oh yeah, the Grand Prix is cancelled. Yeah. And at the same time, I think Indian Wells was going on, and people were flying there, everyone was there, and they're like, you know what, we're not going to do the tournament. And it sounded so crazy that all these events were being called off. But within 4 or 5 days, they're like, yeah, of course those events were called off. It was such a quick change in my life. And most of New Zealand was fine, so I actually carried on and had a nice...
had some nice trips. But while you were doing that...
Yeah, everything in Europe was closing down.
Already crazy here. And I really... For me, the decision was either you still make it over...
Yeah.
Or you're just going to stay in New Zealand for 2 months.
But it wouldn't be 2 months.
It would be much longer.
Yeah. So, of course, I haven't told the story here, but I on this podcast, I think I did on our other podcast, the Science Fiction Book Review podcast. But anyway, so I actually managed to work out the flights out of New Zealand. I threaded the needle. I was on Australia closed down their flights, even for transfers, and then they opened it up for one weekend. So I flew on the Sunday... into Australia from New Zealand and then up to Singapore. And they actually put the flight on early from Sydney or Melbourne or wherever I flew up to Singapore because Singapore was closing down its airport even for international transfers. Yeah. Well, of course, all transfers are international in Singapore, aren't they? Yeah. So I was on literally the last flight into Singapore and then the last flight out, or that last evening of flights. Yeah. The plane took off at 11:15, or the final boarding was 11:15.
Yes.
Because at midnight there was no more flights, and I flew back over to Heathrow and over to Berlin. Yeah. So it was one of those crazy things where sort of this, this ghost terminal when I got to Heathrow Terminal 5, and it was 12 flights that afternoon, and normally there's 100 or whatever.
And I picked you up from Tego.
Yeah.
And the whole board was cancelled, and then you had in total, and they all rerouted all the flights to one terminal, so no other terminals were there. There was no one there. Because
the planes were just coming in and then just parking up, you know. So it was all crazy. So So what this has led to is that we now are both just at home, like everyone is, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
But we are both, like, I am self-employed, and Juliane has this working from home 4 days a week with her office job, which is really good because we set up this new office. When we moved into this apartment, one of the big things in this was having an office space, which is just for office, computers, working now, podcasting, video editing, podcast recording, and I put some, there's some curtains up here as well. I actually, because I had this 2 weeks where a lot of stuff was in this office, so a new desk, everything like that, get it all set up.
Yes.
And things like, we should get this new computer, and you're like, but maybe we don't need this new computer, because I'm only going to use the computers that are working from home, like one day for a week. And I was like, no, let's just get the new computer. It's, this PC, which is, you can put Windows on it. I can do some gaming on it and game development stuff. And you're like, maybe not sure. But now, oh goodness, it's so good we got that.
Glad. Yeah. Yes, I can do proper work. And and we got, also when we moved in here, we had an office chair, a weird IKEA cheap one.
Yeah, it was like a €20 IKEA one.
After moving in here, we decided, okay, let's do this office properly.
Yes.
We both got ourselves some really fancy office chairs.
They're not really fancy, they're just comfy.
But for normal people at home, I see my colleagues sitting in
dining room chairs doing their work. Yeah. But we got some office chairs and a good desk and a big mouse mat which you can put your entire laptop on, this mouse pad and stuff. So anyway, it was really good to get all of this set up ready to go. Yeah. So the idea being, I got back and I'm like, right, I've got back from this trip.
Yeah.
And I'm no longer going to be training at the catapult.
Yeah.
But what I'm going to do is I'm going to concentrate on working on video projects and working on other things that are now is the time.
Yes.
And I thought, and here's the thing, I thought that this would be as creative for me as a creative time as way. Maybe I'm on a cruise line. Yeah, productive. And I'm really going for it. But here's what I've got that I want to share is that this has been really difficult for me because so much of what I do for juggling, for Patreon, but not just for Patreon supporters, but for everyone in the juggling world, it's really tricky because there's, I don't know, it's this motivation thing of who am I creating for? What am I creating for?
Yeah.
And I always feel like there's a juggling community there. And of course the juggling community is still there in many ways. But I'm saying my place of what I'm creating is, I don't know, I know it's difficult for me to put it into words really, but okay, put it this way. I put out a video of the combat. I put out one which is copy from the masters and stuff like that, which was good. And I worked on that, and I was really pleased with that video. Very nice video.
Really good.
Yeah, really good video. Yeah. We'll talk about that kind of stuff in a future podcast, I'm sure, about copying and other things like that. Or maybe we have talked about that in a podcast. I'll have to check it out. But that was really good. And then I was all right, next project. What I'm going to do is a series of 4 videos, each one about how to organize a fight night combat, because I was thinking this is great. I've been promising people that I'm going to make some videos about how to organize fight nights for a while.
Yes.
And I had a timeline of when I wanted to do them by. And weirdly enough, the timeline was I wanted to do them to finish up, or not all of them, but 2 of them specifically. I wanted to finish them up before the Israeli juggling convention.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to teach people
around Easter.
Which is Easter. Which actually no, it's the Israeli juggling convention. So it's at Passover.
Yes.
So that was, and they've done a really, really bad job of organizing that fight night for the last 4 years, to the point where it's a huge fight night. 30 people enter, but it's only a 250 tournament because I didn't get any results. I only got 4. They only have 8 people in it, and I got the knockout results, and just no photos and bad videos and stuff like that. It was really badly organized. The idea being I'm gonna put this together, and some other people had said, hey, we're organizing a fight night, it'd be good to get a better guide. And there's guides on the website, on the Fight Night Combat website, but it's lots of things to read and lots diagrams and stuff like that. And just to have a 5-minute video or a 10-minute video that someone can watch and go, I can run the qualifications at any size convention or any size fight night. Or I can run I can put on how to host it, and like what music to play and all this other kind of stuff, which there is a format, and it's really easy format. But if it's just set out in a video, like do this, play this kind of music, have this, don't mess around, just the general guide to it.
Yeah.
And I was like, now here is the time when I can do it.
And you have the time.
No, but the point is that I had the motivation to put out these videos because there was a cutoff point. I was like, I want it out a week before the Israeli convention. And there were some other conventions at about the same time. I was going to go over to the Swedish juggling convention.
Yes.
And then we're going to go to the Dutch juggling convention, the NJF,
Berlin.
and the Berlin convention. It would be really good to have this resource of how to organize a Fight Night Combat tournament as a video for the year, as
for the convention
the conventions
season.
coming up. For the spring juggling convention season. And here's the thing, I was like, I'm going to put one of these out. There's like 2 of them that I wanted to put out, one week, one the next week. And then I was like, well, there's actually 4 videos that I want to make about how to organize Fight Night Combat tournaments. So I can put them out one week after the other. But all of that assumes that there's a motivation for me to do this. I mean, I've written the script for them. But again, writing the script was something I could do on a work trip, and writing a script is something I could do. But then you're like, all right, now I've got to find the footage of, to put this together. I've got to draw lots of bits of paper. I've got to set up some filming. I've got to do the voiceover recording, and all of that's fine. But that's quite a bit of work for each one of the videos, for all these video essays and video things that I do. If it's just a vlog, it's quite easy. You just point the camera at yourself, and then you can edit it down, and it's kind of like self-constructing stuff. You find it in the edit. But when it's scripted and written and there's diagrams and it all has to be worked out, and then you've got to make sure that if you forget something, well, maybe you've got to go back and re-record the audio, add extra stuff, or notes on and titles and all that other kind of stuff. And here's the thing, is that suddenly I'm like, the time horizon of when this needs to be finished by is suddenly so far out to the point where, the Swedish juggling convention is cancelled. The Dutch juggling convention is cancelled. The Berlin juggling convention is cancelled.
Well,
the Israeli convention was one of the first ones to be cancelled. The European juggling convention is cancelled. So, I mean, of course, I was going to make these videos not just for people organising conventions this year, but just in general, convention organising.
Yes.
But then you're thinking, well, how long, when is the next convention going to be? There could be some small gatherings, and I expect there will be some things like that. But then I'm thinking, all right, Fight Night Combat. One of the main things that I do with my time in terms of organising juggling stuff and creating juggling stuff is organising the Fight Night Combat website and all of the stuff that goes on with that. That is, normally I would spend maybe 10, 12 hours per week on that project.
Yes.
On getting the results through, sorting out the results, posting about it on Instagram, putting all that kind of stuff on. And sometimes there's I think the most we've had is up to 5 tournaments in one weekend.
Yeah.
Or 4, and there's often 2 tournaments per weekend. And there's a backlog, and then I'm chasing people up. But also that's then a social kind of thing that I'm excited about it, and people, I'm messaging people and people messaging me, and I'm saying, what about the videos and photos? And then I get some things through, and I'll message the winner. I'm like, congrats to the winner. And then it's sharing about it, posting videos, editing videos, posting on Instagram and Twitter and YouTube and Facebook. All of that kind of stuff is a way that it keeps me engaged with the juggling community. And it's my job in the juggling community. It's one of the things that's listed right here on the Patreon page of you are, by becoming a patron, you're supporting this. And now my only considerations, I mean, there's not been a tournament since I think the first week of March, and now it's the end of April. I've not touched the website in all that time. And I think, I should do, because what do you do about the rankings? The rankings continue onwards. Figure on that one. In tennis, which is kind of what the model of the Fight Night Combat rankings, they said they've frozen the rankings. But then they're saying, well, the rankings are frozen at this point. So you're not losing the points as they go away, but they're going to have to work out how that's going to happen, but they don't need to work it out now. But then they're like, is Djokovic the number 1 player now? Is he going to stay the number 1 player throughout? It's that kind of weird thing. So I'm does that mean he's going to catch up with Federer's number one player in the world record? He could catch that, but then they're like, no, but this doesn't count.
Really count.
It doesn't really count. Nah. So then there's all these different things to think about in that way, and now I've got to think about that with fight nights. I'm coming up with formulas like, okay, so if the tournament happened but it hasn't happened again? Do the points drop off, or do we leave it until it's doing it? But I don't know how long that's going to be. What's the formula? How long can something be delayed? How long can a convention be postponed? Is the convention postponed or is it cancelled?
Genau. Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of thing. You can say it in German if you want.
So weird.
I know. But then I'm thinking, oh, right. And then I had like the EJC, one of the main things that I do at the EJC and looking forward to, and I do all that kind of stuff, Fight Night Combat at the EJC. And then you're like, oh, but then you got the Dutch convention, the Berlin convention, the EJC, and the British convention. That's then the 4 major tournaments that we have.
Yeah.
And anyone who wins that gets into the end of year finals. And then I invite everyone to Berlin, and we have the European Championships this year. And it was all this thing. I made an announcement. We're going to have the Open Championships, but also going to have a women's championship, a women's Fight Night championship. And then we're going to have a team combat tournament. And we're going to, it's going to be a big thing. And it's going to be different because we don't live in Berlin, but we'll find lots of places for people to do. And then I'm thinking, but is that going to happen? Or if it is going to happen, who qualifies? Like, there's only been 20 tournaments this year.
Yeah.
Or there's been, I don't know how many tournaments, 15 tournaments or whatever. And last year there were 60 tournaments. Or 65 tournaments or whatever.
It's an absolutely crazy year.
And so now I'm thinking, well, who do I invite? And now I'm thinking, okay, so maybe we're going to have instead of having conventions throughout the year, we can have whatever the limit of number of people who are allowed to gather together in one place. Maybe it's 100 people at a time. We'll have a sub 100 people, not an invite only, but who wants to come to Berlin for a mini juggling convention / combat tournament, combat session kind of thing.
Meeting.
And then you're thinking, well, maybe the halls aren't going to be open. What's the venues? Maybe do it at the catapult.
Maybe people just can't leave their countries.
Yeah. Maybe people can't travel. And so all this thing that I'm spending, last year, all these different things that I'm putting time and effort into, and I have motivation to put time and effort into as a Patreon creator, as a YouTube creator, as a podcaster, and also just as someone who organizes stuff.
Yeah.
Events.
We go to events.
We go to events.
We
organize stuff. So every year I put out, at the end of the year, I put out a juggler's calendar for the next year.
Yeah.
And taking photos of jugglers in shows is one of the things that I really look forward to. And I really enjoy making this. And people love the photos. Loads of people say, oh, can I use this for promotion? Can I use this on my website? Can I share this? And loads of people are really into that all the time with the stuff that I do. Vlogging at juggling conventions. I mean, that's one of the things that, again, I posted last year about it. We got a Patreon, and loads of people started supporting us on Patreon for the vlogs. And it's one of the things that I do, make vlogs at juggling conventions.
That's what we're known for by now.
That's what I'm known for. That's why you're famous in the juggling world.
So people come and say, hey, I know what, they know me from the internet.
And all of this is purely about my own motivation of being someone who makes things, and organizes things and does things and contributes to the world of juggling. You know what I mean?
But that is all cancelled.
That is all gone. So that's all gone. So when I was in New Zealand, I was like, what I'm going to do is I'm going to organize a virtual juggling convention, an online juggling convention. The idea being that we'll have a live stream and we'll have a chat, we'll have video chat, and we'll have people in and we'll swap people in. And the idea being that we can co-watch juggling videos and acts of people performing. And I was thinking of we'll have a fight night as well, where we can replay some full unedited full matches so people can follow along, and I'll pick out some great matches like EJC finals and things like that. Yeah. And people can watch along and do that kind of stuff. But it turns out that as someone who prides themselves on being someone who can just get shit done, like at conventions, if something needs organizing, I can get shit done. Is what I do. That is what I can do. Over the years, I think for 7 years, I organized, or maybe not that many, but over a 7-year span, I organized most of the open stages at the EJC. I've organized every fight night at the EJC for 12 years in a row or whatever, like that. So I do events. This is what I do, And I was thinking, well, now I'll just do that. I'll just do that as virtually. So I'll just organize it. But literally in the time, I was like, what I'll do, put in a few weeks worth of work, lots of preparation. But by the time I did that, it had already been, other people had done it.
Yes.
Which is fine. I mean, great, fantastic. I don't have to do this. But it feels like it feels like personally, as someone who is like, I get shit done. I'm a get shit done kind of person, not the only person. And it turns out other people can do it just as well. Like, because you host you pay the money for a Zoom meeting with unlimited people or 100 people or whatever like that. Yeah. And that can become the thing. And people can juggle and share and do challenges and watch videos like last weekend.
Yeah.
Oh, no, we missed it this weekend. But the previous weekend, we were watching along with Håvard's new video and chatting there and things like that. And hanging out and doing a bit of juggling, did a bit of hat juggling or whatever like that. So there is this other thing, and I don't want it to make it all about me because I want to get onto other things as well, because I'm saying this is what my own motivation comes down to, is that I'm kind of left floundering now, because what I have to do, and I've got some more things to do with these video essays and these tutorials and things, but
also kind of here's the thing.
What?
Normally, if you would do a project like that, I would be gone for part of the day.
Yes.
I would go to work. I would work, and while that is, you have the office, you have the studio to do all this recording, to do all this stuff, and suddenly I am at home.
That's fine.
And work 4 days a week.
It's good that you're at home. You're home.
But that adds to the whole thing that you can't just sit down and do recordings.
No, but the thing is, that's not the issue. My point is that, I realize that in a lot of my juggling life is focused around working up to juggling conventions, building up to juggling conventions, planning things. Like my whole year has been revolving around juggling conventions, not my year, but the shape of my year. Yes. I'm okay, well, in July, August, I go to the EJC. Earlier on is the NJF, the Berlin Convention. And I try and work out a schedule of other conventions.
Yes.
And other things like that.
The British Convention would have been a great time of year.
British Juggling Convention hasn't been cancelled yet because it's in July or something, or August. Late July, early August, I think it is.
Yeah.
I've still got cruise gigs booked for August and October.
Yeah.
But also I've got to think, well, they're probably not going to happen. And this is another big issue of motivation for juggling, is that I realize so much of my juggling training is something that builds up to either performing, two things that it builds up to, either performing professionally or performing at a juggling convention. And this year I was working on a new act that I was going to perform the act at the Swedish Juggling Convention and the Dutch Juggling Convention, and also probably at the Berlin, maybe not probably. Anyway, I was talking to the organizers of the Berlin convention show, maybe performing it there, other things like that, talking to the British Juggling Convention people, saying, look, they invited me over to organize the fight night and take part in that. But also I was like, hey, look, if I'm coming over, it'd be good to be in the show. I last performed in the show at the British Juggling Convention, I think 2008, in the gala show, or in the public show as they call it there, although I was a guest in 2014 at the British Juggling Convention. So I was kind of angling for an invite to be in the show there too, not just as an organizer, as a fight night organizer. But all of this has been taken away from me. So the tricks that I was really working on, this combination trick, this four finales trick, these other mixed prop tricks that I had, all of that was there as sort of that's my motivation to train up this routine, this act.
Yeah.
And I'm working on all this stuff. And that's been taken away. My real job, working on cruise ships, I have a lot of friends who are on these quarantine ships.
Yeah.
I still got some friends who are on some celebrity ship.
Wow.
In the Gulf or Dubai or near Dubai or something like that. And they're still, up until 4 or 5 days ago, they were quarantined in a cabin. They've been put in a passenger cabin because there's no passengers there, so they can spread the people out around.
Yeah.
But for 5 weeks, they've been quarantined in one cabin with food being delivered to their room. They're not even going out anywhere for food. And now they're allowed out around the decks of the ship, the top decks of the ship. So I'm really lucky not to be trapped on some of these ships where, again, still my friends who I work with on cruise ships are still stuck. But also, I have nothing to build up to professionally as a juggler.
Yeah.
And this is really, really difficult for me as a professional
to
juggler.
Just keep going for...
Yeah. All of what I do socially in juggling is online and at conventions, and also going and training in Berlin, other places, and meeting people and playing combat with people in Berlin. We had we started up the Sunday night combat again.
And it got really
Yeah.
went great.
Oh, it was going great. And also just being in a room juggling with other people where you can stop and chat or watch them or do whatever, just hanging out. That is so much a big part of my life as a juggler.
Yeah.
And then the focus of going, like working up creatively and training and all that other stuff up to conventions.
Yeah.
And also as a professional. That almost every motivation that I have now as a juggler has been taken away, and training space has been taken away.
Yes. So if one of those would have been taken away...
Yeah, if any one of these things had been taken away, I'd still be juggling.
But suddenly, all of them are away.
Yeah. And it's so crazy for me as a professional juggler. I have juggled twice since coming back from New Zealand.
Yeah.
And that was like over a month ago. That was like almost 6 weeks ago, 5-6 weeks ago, when I came back from New Zealand. And the 2 bits of juggling I've done was one, Fabio asked me to do juggle with a shadow.
Yeah.
And so I did, well, literally I set it up, worked out, did it, and it didn't fit in the video because the shadow was in the wrong place. So I went back and did it again, this 3 club trick, and packed that away. And that's it. And then I did a little bit of hat juggling when people said, "Oh, you're not you don't do hat juggling."
You did some toilet roll juggling.
Yeah, and I did a bit of toilet roll juggling. But yeah, since the toilet roll juggling, that's my last training session when I was actually trying something out for more than 20 seconds or whatever, or a minute.
True.
And that's it. And this is so crazy for me to be in a position as someone who is a professional juggler, as someone who is also a full-time non-professional juggler. I know that's a weird thing to say, but like my identity as a person
revolves around
being a juggler.
Yeah.
My, like, if you want to use the word which I really dislike, being a creator, but I am a creator. Like, because I'm creating podcasts, juggling, videos, Instagram stuff, events, and also organizing stuff, and photography, video, vlogging, video essays, all these other kind of things, and all of that has been reduced down into me going, well, I guess what I'm contributing to the world now, and also contributing to my own self and my own training, is I want to put out a few video essays or videos per month. And just the reduction of all of my world of being a juggler being reduced down to, I guess I can put out some videos.
Yeah.
It's so much of a motivation killer that it's really difficult as someone whose self-image is, I am a juggler. I am a professional juggler. I'm a very good performer. I'm also very good at organizing stuff, and I'm good at creating stuff. You know, there's these different strands that I have.
Yeah.
And all of that has been stripped away in a way.
Yeah.
So it's really difficult for me. And, you know, it is talking candidly about motivation and mental health and all this other kind of stuff. It's not a mental health issue because I'm not feeling down or depressed or anything, but I'm feeling constantly drained.
Yes.
It's this constant
that is
draining.
Mental health pressure.
Yeah.
And I must say, I feel in a way exactly the same.
Yeah, with your music stuff,
I mean, the only thing that is in between me and you there is that I have a part-time employment job where I...
Yeah, but you're still doing that 4 hours a day, 4 days a week, or something like that. So it's a schedule, or your regular schedule.
But this is a regular thing. I have kind of like this is what keeps us living.
Yeah.
And so, but this is what it got reduced for me as well.
Yeah.
I'm teaching 2 students online.
Yeah. But you said to me you've not even done any music stuff. You've not done.
No,
you've done like two singing sessions in the last month.
Singing session.
Yeah.
And I just
because all your singing gigs have been cancelled. You just cancelled some more a few days ago, didn't you?
Like they would have been in May.
Yeah.
So there's no way I'm going to perform in front of whatever people.
Yeah.
But also it's this. I don't have it. Also, now I got asked to do some vocal coaching, some videos.
Yeah.
With some vocal coaching for some choirs. And it's really hard for me to start.
It's to get back into that mindset. That's the thing. For me, it's this break of mindset.
Yeah.
That my mindset has. I mean, of course, I still self-identify as a juggler because I am a juggler.
Yeah.
But it's this thing where you just go, oh, this coronavirus and everything has like rocked me to the core of my self-identity, and working through that mentally. Just literally, it's to the point where like, okay, we don't know. Like, I get all of my money, or 90% of my money is from working on cruise ships.
Yes.
And suddenly that's gone.
Yeah.
Like, my agent is just sending stuff out saying, look, it's for another however many long, it's not happening. And of course, I'm thinking maybe in the winter again, when they kind of do this relocation of the cruise ships or whatever, what's going to happen then?
Yeah.
Like, it's so difficult for me to go, right, I am now planning my, how do I plan my long-term career, not even long-term, but medium-term career as a juggler, as a professional juggler whose main income is working on cruise ships. Because I'm like, oh, well, I'll just do something else as a professional juggler.
Yeah, but the only thing as a professional juggler you can do is performing in events.
Is in events.
Is performing for people on stage for gatherings of human beings.
Yeah, and none of that's there. I'm like, oh, I'll do some street show. Like, this is what I made. Like, always when I'm thinking, oh, maybe if the cruise ship doesn't work out, I can do street show stuff again. But I'm not a great street show juggler. And every time I do it, I'm like, oh, well, no, it's too much. I've done some street show festivals, but then I've got to find those gigs myself. And instead of having an agent, there's so much more work, so much more investment that I'm just like, the cruise ship work is fine. And of course, the cruise ship work would be fine. But
it started off really well this year.
Yeah, it's fine. I had these gigs and stuff like that. And again, I've still got paid for the gigs that didn't happen, or I haven't actually yet. But yeah, some money came in yesterday. So for this year, financially, we're fine. We'll be okay this year because your job continues. We got some relief fund from the state here in Germany as well to help pay work expenses, which was really handy because I had quite a few from this work trip and these other things that didn't happen and things like that. So those kind of things work out. We've got this home office. And so it's really strange for me to go, right, I'm going to put in all the work into being a professional juggler that I would normally put into the work to being a professional juggler, which is doing all the training, which is doing all the travel. Of course, there's no travel, which is doing all the preparation, which is doing all this other stuff that I would normally be working on new acts. It's really difficult for me to do that. First of all, no training space.
Yes.
And when I moved into the other apartment, I was like, oh, I've got a bounce routine of what I can do. I could just go into the cellar and the floor. But there's no way we can do bounce routines now. We've got downstairs neighbors and things, and there's nowhere outside to do. I could set up a bouncing slab, but like, where's that going to just be in the gravel in the backyard or whatever?
Yeah.
It's so difficult to recalibrate my brain into thinking long term, medium term, even short term as a professional juggler.
Yeah, so nobody can plan.
No, it's impossible. So again, not complaining about this because we've been together or individually or with the two of us, we've worked out other stuff to keep our brains active.
Yeah.
But then that's what we're doing. Like I've always been doing computer programming, and again, it's one of those things that like maybe long term juggling professionally isn't going to work out. And I've got quite a lot of experience. I mean, I'm totally self-taught with all of this stuff.
Yeah.
With the if anyone seeing here, if you've seen the Fight Night Combat website, that was all coded from scratch. From me, so by me, so like with Python and all this kind of stuff. So there's like thousands of lines of code there, and this website's been up and running. Since 2012 or something like that. So I've been working on a website for 8 years and doing that kind of stuff, and I've run other programming in there as well. Now I'm learning these other programming languages and some of the frameworks, and doing some game programming as well, which is something I started working on last year.
Yes.
And
totally
unrelated to this, but even last year I was like, all right, I want to start like doing other stuff. And it wasn't like, oh, in case the world comes to a stop and I can no longer perform professionally anymore, I've got something to fall back on.
Yeah.
But this is now one of the main things that I have to do. So every morning I'm waking up randomly earlier and earlier because this is completely messing up my sleep schedule and stuff like that. But I come in and I do 3.5 hours, 4 hours worth of computer programming,
learning new things,
researching stuff and things like that. With the idea, I know it's weird to say, but with the idea of being like, oh, maybe in the future I can't just be a full-time professional, non-professional juggler.
Yeah.
Like I can't just rely on that.
On events happening at all.
On juggling and being locked in. Of course, I'll still be part of the juggling world, but what is, like, until I know what the juggling world looks like in 6 months' time, Are there going to be conventions? Is there going to be any fight night? Is there going to be any shows? Like, is there going to be any, like, what is everybody's role going to be in the new only online juggling world?
Yeah.
And it's all going to be switched around. It's all going to be very difficult. So I am going to keep, of course, I'm still going to work on these videos. Like I say, over the next few weeks, I'm going to put out these next few videos and stuff because, again...
But also, if there's no events, like, you now put out these videos.
Yeah.
But what use, like, people can't take it and then use it in their things.
And that's why it's so difficult for me to get that motivation to, like, all right, let's make this videos about organising fight night for... No reason, for no reason at all. Yeah. And maybe we're going to say, and don't do a fight night until everyone's got a face mask on, and, you know, take regular breaks so you don't get out of breath by trying to do physical activity with a face mask on. I mean, what can you do? What's going to be the new guidelines for juggling conventions?
It's a physical thing. It's sports, and it's lots of people.
No, I'm just saying in general with juggling and things like that.
Yeah, the world will have to change in certain ways. And we can't really know that yet.
Yeah, it is crazy. So for next month I'll be doing some more, releasing some more podcasts as well next month as well. Going to hopefully find some people who like me and like Juliane, in fact, like everybody whose lives have been impacted by this, and I want to do a series of podcasts, or maybe just a podcast episode where I talk to other professional jugglers and things like that.
Yeah, sounds good.
About what it is. And again, these have been Patreon exclusive, but some of these ones, like I said before, are because I want to do more podcasts per week. More podcasts per month. I would like to release some of these not just for Patreon exclusive. For everyone, just release them on YouTube as videos as well. I might do that with this one because I think this is an interesting situation. And like I say, it's timely. There's no point in releasing this later.
I'm sure that we are not the only people who kind of feel like today. Yeah. I felt like, first of all, I feel more and more drained, more and more exhausted and tired. And I feel empty of like there's nothing. It's just the same every day.
Yeah, that's why I really wanted to do this podcast now to talk through some of these things because, like I say, real talk in terms of like not just motivation but also just mental health and physical health and all that kind of stuff.
And we really try. I mean, we try to go out regularly. We go out mountain biking or
we got
whatever.
one of the things that we both had kind of budgeted into moving into the new apartment in the country, in this new home, not technically in the country, but the country is very close by in this town. Yeah. And we can, we go 50 meters down the street and we're in the forest. With the idea being that we'll get some new bikes which are more suitable. Like we've had these city bikes for 10 years or whatever. Yeah. But now we get some mountain bikes which are more suitable for the paths and trails around here. Yeah. And now we both have them. And now that's whereas before juggling and going for runs in the park was my main physical activity.
Keep you fit.
So when I wasn't if each day if I didn't go juggling training, I would probably go out for a run. Yeah. Or if I needed a long bike ride, I could do that. Like if I was going somewhere in Berlin and doing the park runs, I do the park runs every weekend.
You often just cycled to the juggling training.
Yeah, cycling.
All this immediately gone. There's
all
nothing
of that's gone.
That left.
So I've been doing mountain biking pretty much every day.
Yes.
Although I only got my bike, so I've been using my city bike, but still going around these paths, which to be honest, not that healthy on my city bike, my touring bike. That was a hybrid, whatever they call it. Yeah. But now I have a mountain bike. Juliane's got a mountain bike, an electric mountain bike, so she can keep up with me if we go mountain. So it's this weird thing that mountain biking or biking every day has replaced all my physical activity, and it's literally the only reason I leave the house now except to go food shopping is to go out on the bike because there's no social activity. I mean, sometimes we go around to your parents' place and hang out in their garden. Yeah. But
today I wanted to go have an ice cream, so we walked to the ice cream parlor.
And then got caught in the rain.
But it's like these tiny things, and it's like it needs a conscious I'm hanging here, and there's nothing. I'm done with my work for today. I'm feeling drained and tired, but I want to do something. So
it's really difficult. Yeah. So my schedule for the last few weeks has been about 4 hours worth of computer work, computer programming, other stuff like bits and pieces like that.
Until I start my work.
And then you start your work. Well, also I do other stuff of that during the day as well. Yeah. So normally about 3 hours in the morning, and then maybe an hour or 2 hours later on in the day. Yeah. and you do 4 hours of work per day as well
Yeah.
in the office, in the home office
4 to
here.
5, whatever it
Yeah,
is.
4 or 5 hours a day. And while you're working, I do housework and go out on my bike for an hour or whatever.
Yeah.
And in the evening, we just sit and watch YouTube videos and Netflix and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And play the Zelda game together.
Which we got,
Yeah.
which is good that we got it because
And I play PUBG
yeah.
and stuff like that sometimes,
But
3 times a week, 2 or 3 times a week.
The activities are very narrow. And also we noticed there's no new topics.
Yes, and this is what we were just talking about. We went out for a walk and we were walking along going, all we've got to talk about is either coronavirus, the politics of coronavirus, latest coronavirus news.
Yeah.
And it's really difficult, this whole kind of like, what do we do? And we just end up sitting there and like scrolling through Instagram. So what I've done, I know this is really bad for everyone listening to this podcast, is that I've had to like unfollow loads of people on Instagram and mute their Instagram stories because everyone's like, what I do now is share my life on Instagram. And I'm like, I can't, like, I love everyone, but I can't see that many people baking sourdough bread. Like, it's just too much sourdough bread in my life.
He has it at home.
I have said, Juliane is doing sourdough bread.
I did that totally unrelated.
Yeah, it was just moving here and we're like, do some baking. And then, and now everyone's doing sourdough bread.
Yeah.
And everyone posting these challenges on Instagram and doing this and doing that. I mean, I still see people's Instagram posts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But stories, I realized that I was just, like, the stories were just filling up. The Instagram stories, just story after story after story. So I just went through and I just muted loads of people, like all their stories, like anyone who posted anything. I mean, there's some, close friends, and actually, weirdly enough, more non-juggling people is there because it's so difficult for me to just sit there and have juggling in my life in that way.
Yeah.
So
and also, I think something that I noticed certainly is that a lot of jugglers now turned their normal behavior to suddenly posting lots of videos and being very, very active.
Yes, people are more active now. Yeah.
But in a different way that they would previously be, like putting out long YouTube videos or they were mostly showing clips and tutorials.
And that's what I was realizing, that my we were chatting about when I go on my bike, that gives me my endorphin rush. It gives me my like, hey, you were doing something dangerous and exciting and energetic, and it feels like you're alive and this is great. We need this kind of thing, and the chemicals in the brain are really going for it, and that's all cool. And then also you get the dopamine hit of sort of like, oh, I'm going to do something and I get a reward. Oh, and I do something else and I get a reward. And you feel like and I just felt like a pigeon pecking at things. Yes. And I was like, peck, 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 or chickens just pecking over and over again. I want something, reward. I want something, reward. And Instagram was just giving that to me over and over and over again. But in a narrower and narrower thing. And I realized that, my consumption for me of juggling isn't these, like, there's even a limit. What is it, like 15 seconds on an Instagram story and then it moves on to the next one or whatever. I don't know what it is, but it's like really short. And after like a few weeks of just constantly going into my phone and doing that, and now it's really calm because I don't have that. I mean, I've always been much better at this. Like I only look at Facebook once per day. Yeah. And I follow very few people on Twitter, and Instagram for me was that safe place where I was like, oh great, I follow lots of jugglers and they're posting interesting stuff and all that kind of stuff. And it's not like they're not still posting interesting stuff, but the range of things that people are posting
got narrowed.
Is so reduced because I was like, oh, this person's performing there.
Everybody's lives got reduced literally to their home. And you are going to repeat your life over and over in that refined space. Yeah. There's not a lot that you can do different every day.
No.
It really isn't.
Yeah.
And so the same way that we have this regular, we should really ask when the next Zoom meeting is. We have like the Berlin juggling
some breakfast group,
group kind of meeting. And there you ask around how many of you have gone into a clothing cycle where you put something into the wash and then you wear it again. Yeah. And then you put it in the wash and you wear it again.
Yeah, I've worn literally 3 pairs of trousers, 4 or 5 t-shirts and 3 jumpers.
Yes, but why do we not? I mean, in normal life, why do you not do that the same thing?
Well, because in normal life, I'm going out and doing stuff, and I'm like, I'm going to go out and meet some people, so I'll put this other kind of clothes on. But now all I'm doing is, like I say, getting up, sitting at the office for 4 hours.
We are good here that we actually get dressed properly every day.
Yeah.
And do our body.
Well, we've got to because we've got neighbours.
Yes, but like the whole thing. Lots of people will just be sitting in their sweatpants all day, or in their.
Oh no!
Comfy...
Like I say, my life has structure. My life has focus.
And I still want that.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Is that some thunder outside?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, all of the things that, like I say, that gave my life shape before. But it's really difficult because we literally just moved to this apartment.
Yeah.
And we moved here. I spent 2 weeks like building desks and furniture
crazy.
and
everything
like
had to be ready before your gig.
Yeah, and then I went off on this gig, and then that 2 weeks was up. And when I got back, all I needed to do was I put the flooring in the bathroom, hung up some pictures or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's this really weird, like, pause in our life, which happened that we moved house just at the same time as coronavirus happened, which happened at the same time as that my job stopped and your working life changed and your health changed and all these other kind of things.
Yes.
Anyway, I think we've gone on long enough about that, but it's really like I just want to share like from the inside of being a professional juggler. And like I say, it's really difficult. I don't have anything to share now myself on Instagram because I'm not doing any juggling.
Well, you're sharing your international
that's the
juggler
thing.
videos.
That was a project. Again, talking about a project that I was going to do before all this happened. I was like, all right, 10 years of international juggler videos. So what I want to do is I've got this hard drive and I can archive them all and I can sort them all out. The idea being that they're sorted like into folders by continent and then countries and then regions and then cities and then visits to that city. So I can just easily go through and go, oh, how many times have I juggled in Rome? And I can just look in a folder and there's all of Rome there as well. So I was already working on that project of cataloguing it.
And part of being in this new office, I remember you going absolutely like fantastic about, and then you can set up the hard drives and they are there all the time. And you get yourself a little controller thing.
No, I do. It's all here.
It's all great. And it's all ready to go.
Yes, no, I have a workflow.
It's accessible.
So for me to do these,
workflow is good.
So for me to do daily Instagram posts of me juggling and going through all the different countries and the places that I'd visited this was in 2009, and I realized I've got enough clips that if I keep posting one video per day, there's some lightning. So I can probably get through however many countries I've visited. 130 juggled in 130 countries or whatever. Like I can just keep going. In this kind of thing, like I can just keep ticking off new countries and sharing all this different kind of stuff. And I always wanted to put a new compilation or video, all that kind of stuff together. So this will happen. Like I will keep doing that, and I'm going to work on these new video essays. But the fight note organizing videos is just so difficult to do that. So I think what I need to do is put those aside, put those on the back burner, and I've got these other video essays and workshops that I want to do. One thing I'd like to do is my performance of juggling workshop, where we watch two jugglers performing pretty much the same act and then doing a compare and contrast. I'd love to do a video version of that, and I might do that as some kind of live stream Zoom meeting kind of thing. Okay. So we can watch along.
Yeah, of course, because then people can come.
Yeah, people can come and join in.
Yeah, it's more interactive.
Yeah, I can put the videos online and say, watch these videos in advance. We'll also watch them at the start. And then we can just do that. And then I'll do an edited timeline.
Really
so I'm going to do that next month. And I've got some other video essay ideas that I want to do. I also want to do the follow-up to the Juggling in Movies one, where I like the people that you see juggling in the background of movies and actually juggling movies.
I actually watched in the meantime, I actually watched the Addams Family movie.
Oh, you've seen it now?
I've not seen it before.
Okay, well, that's cool.
But now I've seen it for the first time.
All right, we've been going like 57 minutes. I think this is a long time for talk about this kind of stuff.
Yes, but I'm sure lots of people can relate.
Yeah. And I just want to say thank you so much to all of the juggling patrons. And it's literally no... it's not any exaggeration to say that Patreon supporters is literally the only money that I'm making now as a juggler.
Yes.
Is this Patreon support, which is
thank you so much.
It is so fantastic.
It helps so much.
It does help so much. Just from, like I say, just from a motivation, just from a connection point of view. And like I say, it's been a bit tricky over the last few months of this travel, Juliane in and out of hospital, moving house. And now we're kind of settled down. I think what we need to do is just admit that this now is the new routine. Yeah. So the workshop, like the podcasting that we're going to do, I've just got to admit to myself, like I can't keep waiting for life to settle down into something more. Yeah. This is what my life is now.
This is it.
This is it.
And if we just have to do stuff.
Yes.
We can't sit and
It has
think.
to be done.
It has to be done.
Yes.
And I think this is how I should also continue with my stuff. Like, there's a bank holiday coming up on Friday.
Yeah.
I'm going to put that day to work on the vocal coaching videos.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
No matter what.
Yeah, so I think that's what we need to do is that, like, now we got the new bikes, we got everything set,
Yeah.
You got your schedule set out, and I've got a schedule set out, and now I can just go, all right, so these days, I can work on this stuff.
Yes.
But just finding that schedule, just settling into that schedule is so difficult.
Yes.
And I never realized how much our life was set up just by like, oh, and then I go juggling in the evenings.
Happen.
And then I go to that show. And then we meet these people. And then we go out here. And then we go there. And we go for a walk there. And then we go to this convention. And then we like have our life. You were saying that, oh, my boss at work was saying, please, people schedule holidays.
Yeah.
Even though if
you can't go anywhere.
Yeah, even if you can't go anywhere, take your vacation time and don't get stuck in the cycle of just going to work, like sitting at your office chair every day at home or your dining room table.
Yeah.
So yes, I want to just go over and say thank you to the people who here are top patrons, including Chris and Ben and Matt and Simon and Kathy and Rogelio and Lars and I think that's someone who's anonymous, wants to be anonymous, and Flo and Di Hong Tae and Robert and Harvey and Juliana. Juliana, you're still a patron of mine. And Pierre, and let me look down. I think there's some other people as well here as well. Ben and Hendrik. And I think that's it as well. And some other people. Oh, and Keith Jones as well. Thank you very much for being a patron supporter this month. Again, I know it's been a bit sparse, but it's going to be. We're going to pick up as well. We're going to pick up now. I know that we said that beforehand, but as you can see, we've been very busy moving house, traveling, working stuff out, and now we can get back into it. So I'm going to release this podcast as a full YouTube video, and I just want to say thank you to all the Patreon supporters and anyone who's listened through here who isn't a Patreon supporter. Just please go along to patreon.com/s. No, that's the wrong one.
Luke Burridge.
Luke Burridge. I'm getting, because we're podcasting, I'm getting mixed up with the other podcast. So patreon.com/Luke Burridge is where you need to go, and just $1 for 1 month is great. You get a thank you. You'll be listed at the end of the next juggling video with a thank you there as well.
Yeah.
And from now on, you'll get at least one podcast, a Patreon exclusive podcast. We'll put out some interviews, we'll do some workshops, I'll do some more video essays, and also check out, I'm probably going to do some videos, more fight night videos as well, going back through the archives, because there's some great videos that I want to make.
Some great fights between some
I'm going to keep putting out some fight night videos just to keep those ticking over, because there are some great matches and great moments which I'd love to share, which haven't been shared
that's a good idea.
before. I think that's it.
We got our motivation a bit.
Well, today we did,
after
and
the podcast,
into the future. Look out over the next few days for some more videos this month. Although I guess there's only 2 more days left in this month, and we'll pick up again with the podcasts and videos and other stuff. Again, I was going to say and fight nights, but no, I'm not gonna.
No events.
I'm not gonna do it. I will kick the website into shape.
It will get that.
But there's just no motivation. There's no hurry. There's nothing.
I know,
weird.
But it will come back. Something will come back.
We've done an hour.
All right.
That's it from us. Thanks a lot for listening, and I'll catch you next time.
Goodbye.